So the port has been designated as the associate development organization for the county. That paperwork has been forwarded to the state. We're now at a stage where we are going to be discussing the terms and conditions of the contract between the county and the port as the ADO. And the three of us have had conversations about what terms and possible changes to the previous contract might be in line. And from my recollection, those three are the duration of the contract. The outside limit that we've talked about is the June 30th, 2025 expiration, a year, something in between. We'll be okay on that.
Also, the terms or the length of the contract, they would like to extend it to 2 years. They're concerned that this has become political and that this has become in danger of they're going to create a position and they're going to create a program and then be removed, and that there would be that turnover quickly. So that's what I got from them. Okay. So it was 200,000 and extending that another year.
Did you get with sufficient clarity? Is that from the original EDC contract designation, or from the day we designated them as ADO?
Yeah, that was the clarity I got, was from the original contract date.
So June
I'd have to get a calendar
2025.
Yes,
would be the end of. That's what we're proposing.
No,
or they were proposing.
No, that's a year.
Right. They want to essentially put the county in the position of forcing the county to designate them as the ADO after the expiration of the current term.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes, I think that's accurate. There is concern on their part, and they may have even had this clarified since then, that Commerce hasn't given them a straight answer about that revenue between the remaining revenue from the EDC. What's the status of that? And Commerce needs to get that handled through their legal. So that's where the additional revenue come in, and that's in their budget proposal where that is. So I'm the messenger, guys. I'm bringing it.
What is the expiration date of the current contract?
The ADO contract?
Yeah, that's
June 30th, 2025.
Is June 30th. So June of 2026 is the proposal?
No.
Is just the request?
Well, from my yes. Yeah.
Let's remember the ADO contract was with Commerce.
Yes.
So this contract with what we call our economic development.
Yes. Yes.
So the ADO contract does expire June 30th, 2025. That contract with EDC expired. There's no current one.
Right, and let me be clear, just so everybody understands. There will be a time and a place to examine all things related to EDC and any outstanding issues. This is not the time or place for that. Regarding John's question, which is a fair one, my previous comment to Brian that he seemed to agree with is that the request by the port to have a contract with the county that extends 2 years in the future into a subsequent ADO period is an attempt by the port to force the county to renew the designation to the state as.
I misunderstood what you were saying.
Okay.
I think the attempt there was to keep that cycle outside of an election year. I will be blunt. Okay.
I see.
And not so much connected with the ADO discussion. Yeah, I think so. I'm assuming that's what she did.
Okay. What do you want to do? One by one?
Yeah. I don't care. What are your thoughts, John?
Well, I mean, you know where I land on all of those.
My concern about the dollar amount is budgetary considerations and considerations of obligating those funds beyond the budget, and I just want to make sure I'm not in a hurry and I think about thinking through it. Okay, and that's my concern on that. The as far as just the cost of it is less of a concern there than, to me, those issues about budgeting, and I don't want to go beyond what's budgeted and what's already been agreed on that we spent. Okay, and so I wanted to have a conversation about that. Also, whether there's better ways of doing it. Because the additional ask was a result of the concern about the commerce funds. So maybe that needs to be a separate ask. Is there a better way to do it, to accomplish that? Or in a separate agreement, so to speak, if they don't come through. So I just want to back it up and think about that.
Well, on that, I'd say the contract can contemplate if, it can be a contingent. I'm not agreeing to this, but
Right.
the contract could say you get 200, but if the state comes through with 75, it gets reduced.
Right.
So, I mean, it doesn't have to be a separate.
That's what I wanted to have that conversation, Robert. That's what my thinking was too. So that, that was contingent on that.
Right. So just to be clear, I mean, I'm a no on all three elements, regardless of whether it's 200,000 first year.
Right.
So, I mean, and I'll just leave it there. You pull this forward however you want. I've made my position clear.
Yeah, and I think we knew that.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
No, you didn't. Because I said that if the board would agree to that monthly transparency meeting in person.
Okay.
I mean, I gave you a good faith promise and I keep my promises. And so I have to say, to have gotten zero, I mean, they've expanded considerably beyond the original agreement. Longer term, more money, and nothing on the quarterly reporting, nothing to show, sure, we're going to make a good faith attempt on this. So that's where I am.
Okay, that's your perspective. I appreciate that.
What original agreement are we talking about?
The RFP,
From the RFP? As in a difference between what we wanted from, yeah, I'm lost. Are we talking about, we're talking about our inclusions that we would like to see in the contract. Are we talking about the old EDC contract, the difference in between?
So let's start with the budget. I mean, the coordinator request for $105,000.
Right.
The court, I have to say, I don't know whether our RFP contemplated that the initial term would go through the same term that the ADO contract goes through. I think that was our discussion because in this room, I believe my fellow commissioner said, and if they aren't living up to expectations at the end of that cycle, we have the ability to terminate them. So, implied in that is that the termination date was going to be June 30th, 2025.
Right.
And so for me to be faced with this June 30th, 2027, it's like, what? And on the reporting, we had, monthly, quarterly, I believe in the room was suggested every other month.
So, okay, so let's carve off pieces of that because I still like every other month. I mean, we're talking about a contract negotiation, and so we split the difference. I like every other month because every month we'll get whoever the commissioner is as the appointee. We'll get that update every single month, but then we get an update from them every other month. I'm comfortable with that. I would carve out from the beginning when I said we have had a volunteer bookkeeper spend 2 or 3 hours a month from the EDC for all of time. Now we have professional certified staff who has never failed at all. They have full-time employee doing their bookkeeping. It's a huge upgrade. So I'm a lot more comfortable with where it's going to go. But especially in a new organization, more check-in is better, right? I mean, I'll land in the same spot as you on that one, Robert. And I'm okay with the shorter term, but then you're going to have a whole conversation about under what conditions are we dropping the hammer, because their concern is that it's politicized. And speaking frankly, Robert, I feel like you have lacked objectivity in pieces of this. And I could almost say what your answer is going to be a year from now or 10 years from now. I just being very clear. So if I'm them, I've got concerns as well. There has never been anything they've done right, which is remarkable considering they're not the EDC. Before you walked in the room for the first time, this was your goal, for the EDC to be gone. It was a campaign promise. So this was inevitable in some regard. And you've got your reasons, and I respect that. You are 1/3 of the will of the people, I mean, in that regard. But I don't feel like they're getting a fair shake at all from Commissioner Rosen. I don't feel like you've had the objectivity required to do this job in regards to that. You've had a very singular focus. And so we need to very clearly delineate. If they give us a monthly report, if they get back to you in 5 days on a public records request, if they're doing these things, do you still get to ask them? And I guess it's a 2 out of 3 vote, but I would consider a short term if we could very, very clearly sign it out. If I'm doing it myself, I would want the continuity of a 2-year term, which is also not 2027. That's closer to 3 years.
Actually, and I'm pretty stuck on the 2-year term, but I'm willing to hear you, John. I feel like as an organization, I can really see the benefit of them to have longevity in creating that program and have some consistency and some longevity over time in creating that. We did talk about a 1-year term. That is what we talked about at the table, Robert. You're exactly right. We mentioned that if we don't like it, we can end it then. You're right. This was a surprise to me. So you're right about that, and those words were spoken. But I can really see from their perspective the wisdom of creating a longer term and having that consistency through. I would ask the same thing. I would if I was in their shoes. And if I had to create something and I would ask it. It's ours to say no. It is. Right. Or yes.
And given John's clear articulation that the court's perspective on my perspective on them is driving their behavior, and I think that's backed up by yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since 2 votes takes policy, go ahead and make your deal, because this is so. I've said what I have to say. I don't want to inflame it. We're like the policy. Go ahead.
Right.